Teresa's back.
Okay, I'm back. We're still working on it with Representative Thompson. Representative, if you can hear, Liz is going to get you set up. And I think we'll go ahead and begin, and we'll pipe Representative Thompson in when he comes along. Well, I just want to say thank you to everybody for joining us again. We took a little bit of a break, but we're back to our BayTran weekly webinars. I'm Theresa Rodriguez. Oh, there he is.
Oh, there we go.
Perfect, wonderful. Just self-introductions. I'm Theresa Rodriguez. I'm the president of BayTran. And we have our discussion today on the Grand Parkway. It was about a year ago that we were all in Austin fighting to keep the Grand Parkway on the Unified Transportation Plan. And some of you were involved well before that, but certainly took a number of delegations to make that successful. And every one of you on the panel today was a part of that. So Carl, if you want to introduce yourself, and then Larry, John, and Representative Thompson.
Well, again, thank you for being with us today. And Representative Thompson, I'm glad you finally got on. We have one of our largest crowds, and I was kind of bragging about that. And then Larry said that, well, 30 of them were his relatives. And then John said the other were 15 of his relatives. So I think you've only got 2 come on for you today. So sorry, you did get a spread to your family, I guess. But I do appreciate you guys visiting with us today. BayTran really wants to take the lead in transportation in our areas, and our top 3 right now are really completing the Grand Parkway, getting the ship channel widened, and then of course the one that affects all of us, which is the coastal spine. Those are kind of our top things, and then we've been trying to visit with different cities that are in our region to find out other things that we can put together for our legislative plan going to Austin this next year. So anyway, thank you, and I'll turn it back to Theresa.
Yes, and I'll go ahead and introduce you. I think that's the right thing to do. We do have Representative Ed Thompson from District 29. Representative, we've appreciated having you all along the way, especially when it came time to fight for the Grand Parkway. We also have Larry Buehler from the city of Alvin. Larry is the Director of Business Development and Government Relations. And from the city of Leak City, we have John Baumgartner, the city manager. And as I mentioned, each one of you holds some component of importance with the Grand Parkway, whether it's the connectivity or the advocacy of it, the business side of it. So we wanted to just check in, see where we are a year later and where we're headed. So Representative Thompson, if you want to talk a little bit about that, the efforts that you and your office helped with in getting us this far along.
Thank you. Thank y'all for having me. I'm sorry I had, I don't know what I was doing wrong, but I kept trying to get it in, trying to enter all the numbers, and it kept, I could see y'all and hear y'all and couldn't say anything. So that's not good for a politician to be not able to say something. So, but anyway, again, thank y'all, and thank you for being patient with me. Yeah, right now, I mean, we're certainly in the throes of, and I want to let Larry take a lot of the information about I guess the mechanics of where we're at in the parkway and that sort of thing. But just from a perspective of this group and the advocacy that was there a year ago for this project, you know, at that time, TxDOT made the statement to us that it was the largest outpouring of support for a project that they had ever seen. And I think that speaks very, very highly of where a region can come together and work together. You know, that's one of the things that's really, you know, my time in the transportation committee, on the transportation committee. You know, I've been a little bit, I guess, envious of the DFW Metroplex, sort of the way that they go about doing things. And it seems like, you know, they're always out in the lead on this stuff, and always seem to be getting projects. And you know, we're always seem to be at the end of the trail, I guess, if you will. But I think what it all comes down to, though, is that it comes down to that regional work that they're all doing together. And I think that was shown evident in this particular project, where everyone came together for the good of the entire region. And I think that's something that we have to continue to do. We have to continue to advocate for one another. We have to continue to advocate for projects that might not be in our city limits, or it might not be in in my case, my district. You know, it might be a project that is nearby, but it does provide connectivity. It does provide things that are important to us. You know, we're involved now in the I-45, the northern part of that project, and the discussion there. And you know, it doesn't go through my district, but it's important to my district. It's important to our region that these projects are done, and they're done for our region. Because if we fight amongst one another and we argue over some of this stuff, my fear is that you know, especially now with the way that the finances are and budgets are and that sort of thing, and we're going to be looking at some very difficult budget numbers in this next legislative session. And I just think it's something that we all have to come together to do what's best for the region. And I'm really appreciative of BayTran and what y'all have done in bringing people together, because I think that's the most important thing that we can do, is we advocate for one another, and we look for those projects that are good projects that are going to help all of us and help the economy and the mobility in our area. So I think that's just vitally important.
And you did mention something that comes through again and again as we've done these webinars and reached out to the mayors and county officials around the region, is that projects impact neighboring counties and neighboring communities, the importance of projects. So, you know, it is good to have those partnerships and to advocate, you know, as a whole for a region.
Well, I'll give you a real good example. It's Texas 36, that 36A project. I mean, that doesn't go into my district. It comes out of the southern part of Brazoria County and goes into Fort Bend County. But that project is a very important project for my district, because of the, you know, of what that will mean for transportation coming out of the port area and out of the southern part of the county. Also, one of the other things that we've got to understand is the importance of the evacuation of people during some of these disasters that we've looked at and seen, and you know, getting people out of our area. We're growing. Texas is still growing by 1,000 people a day. I mean, they claim that we're still, even during this pandemic, you know, we're growing. So we've got to keep up with this if we're going to be able to get people out of this area. And as League City, you know, League City continues to grow. Texas City is starting to, there's projects going on in Texas City and the area down towards Galveston. And so, you know, Pearland's still got growth. Iowa Colony, Manville, all those areas are going to, Alvin's going to continue to grow. I mean, these are all things that we've got to look, we've got to have some futuristic, you know, looks at these things. You know, I guess I'm kind of telling my age here, but, you know, when I was a kid, my uncle lived in Bel Air, and he lived on Glenmont Street. I remember that. In fact, my cousin still lives in that house. But at the end of the street, there were about 8 houses that were condemned, and actually that's when they built the 610 loop. And you know, I think about that. I think about what would the city of Houston be today without the 610 loop. You know, there was people that, you know, had to move, and there was displacement, and there was a lot of things that went on. And I'm sure there was a lot of discussion around those sorts of things. But still, where would the city of Houston be today without the 610 loop? And I think we have to ask ourselves that question as we look at these projects and as we discuss these projects with the transportation people. Is you know, we don't want to be in a situation where we look back and we've missed an opportunity to provide for that mobility for our communities.
Well, you mentioned the growth, and that is a good thing that we do have the cities behind this project. And Larry, you've been involved, you've been meeting with TxDOT. You kind of have insight to how the project is moving forward in the technical sense. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd be glad to. And again, thank you, Theresa and Carl and BayTran, for all you're doing for advocacy for our region. Is very, very important, and especially our State Representative Thompson, and for all his efforts as he continues to help and lead the way on this. You know, what we're looking at today and talking about today is segment B, which ultimately will go from State Highway 288 over to I-45. But what we're specifically working on right now is a subset of that, from just on the south side of Alvin over through League City to I-45. We think the numbers are there to be able to support that. We've been meeting with TxDOT, and they're looking at 3 components right now: the draft level 2 traffic and revenue study for configuration, and actually considering the COVID sensitivity of that, because we know while numbers may not be where they once were, we know that they will be back. Updated capital and maintenance costs so that the financial advisors for the Grand Parkway Corporation underneath TxDOT will be able to look at that. And then that final traffic and revenue study. We know specifically for all of us that it's going to provide major safety and congestion relief. Essentially for Alvin, it's 6 grade separations or overpasses. One will go over the NSF rail line, which right now we go underneath. And so that will be extremely important to move the mobility issues through Alvin, but yet allow our city to continue to grow. And it will follow our existing State Highway Bypass 35, which we have the right of way in the middle. So it just makes sense to be able to move that forward. It's important to stay in communications with our TxDOT officials, and we have WebExes and Zoom meetings with them on a regular basis. So it's important that we're moving those projects forward. So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. We hope to have some answers sooner than later, maybe in the next 4 to 5 weeks from TxDOT. We know that Eliza Paul from Houston TxDOT District is communicating with Austin to make sure that the information they're actually dissecting a little bit more details into the traffic and revenue information before they bring that back out to the Houston district, and then that will allow them to share it back with our state representative and our elected leaders. And I also like to just give a quick plug for Mayor Paul Horn of Alvin. And I know John agrees with me, and Mayor Hallisey there, Pat Hallisey in League City. Those guys have just been great as elected leaders, joining with Representative Thompson. Theresa?
Thank you, and we do definitely recognize the resources, and Mayor Hallisey and Mayor Horn. They've been champions for the project, and that's always appreciated. John, talking about what happens in League City, how this all gets connected, and like the bigger picture of how we connect the full Grand Parkway. I mean, there's an importance to that, and there was a time, 10 or 15 years ago, when the discussion of the east and south side of the Grand Parkway was nobody would ever use it. And since then, I mean, we've seen the growth in our communities, and we've seen the growth in our freight. And so we definitely recognize the value in it now. And that has changed from the thoughts, almost 20 years ago. So in terms of connectivity, John, why don't you talk a little bit about that and what League City's stake is in it? Oh, and you're on mute. Oh.
I think it's just all part of that. I think it's all part of that generational thing. So I'm getting into the Zoom meetings and what have you. So anyway, I appreciate the opportunity to talk about League City and the Grand Parkway. I appreciate what BayTran has done and the champions out there that have been working hard on the Grand Parkway and our ability to keep it moving forward. You know, Representative Thompson talked about the 1,000 people a day coming to the Houston region. Well, League City, we're not at 1,000, but we're probably 10 a day. The growth has been steady. I've been here 8 years, and we add 3,000 to 4,000 people every year. You know, our primary growth corridor is the Grand Parkway corridor. We have major subdivisions already coming out of the ground there. We've got infrastructure being put into the Grand Parkway not roadway corridor, but along the Grand Parkway to service that whole, like we call it, the southwestern quadrant of League City. Representative Thompson talked about, you know, essentially evacuation routes, but, you know, we need it for day-to-day transportation, whether it's connecting all the ports or whether it's just, you know, providing mobility in the southern part of this region. All of those things are important. City of League City, Mayor Hallisey, the entire council has championed the Grand Parkway for years and years and years. You know, major projects, they never come fast enough. You got to stay with them and stay on them, continue to follow up on them. We appreciate the efforts of TxDOT and appreciate what they did last year, not letting it die on the vine per se. And so we're excited to see that continue to grow. From League City's perspective, you know, I think when I've talked before about the Grand Parkway, you know, one of the things League City did a year and a half ago, we had a bond election. In that bond election, the citizens voted $5 million to help support the Grand Parkway efforts, whether that's connectivity to the Grand Parkway or whether that's connectivity adjacent to it in the terms of frontage road and connection of properties. There's a tremendous demand and expectation from this community on what the roadway does. You know, we are literally choking on our success. You know, we've got, you know, I-45, it's under construction, probably about a year and a half to go till that section in League City is complete. It's continuing south all the way to Galveston. But it's, you know, it's clear from that, it's clear from the construction on 146, there's not enough roadways in this area to, you know, meet all the needs, current needs today, growth in the future, evacuation routes in the future. There's not enough routes when you try to move, you know, 2 million or 3 million or 4 or 5 or 6 million people out of the way of a hurricane or storm that's coming. And so it can't be completed soon enough. We continue to advocate for TxDOT to keep it moving forward. Like Larry said, you know, meeting with Eliza has helped. We're still, you know, looking for kind of a, hey, what's the schedule? And you know, hopefully we'll have traffic and revenue and those things to look at to be able to talk about kind of what's the next step. You know, I'm an advocate for, you know, what can we do right now? Can we secure right of way? We've secured right of way by not building in it, but can we secure the right of way by getting TxDOT to acquire it? Can we start design? You know, every one of those steps takes months and months, if not years. And so, you know, I'm still an advocate for doing everything we can to continue it to move forward while we complete traffic and revenue on all those kind of things, so that when it comes time to build it, we're ready to go. So thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you. Now, you've all been meeting with TxDOT, you know, and these meetings have been going on for a while. Does TxDOT have an ask of our community leaders as to what we should be doing to keep the project moving forward? How have they indicated that they want stakeholders involved in a certain way, or I mean, what can we do? And have you heard anything from TxDOT on that?
I have not. I mean, I did get a letter from Chairman Bug in regards to the UTP, but you know, that's the, I guess for lack of a better word, that's the new UTP that they're working on, looking at that one. So I think it's very important, though, that when we do have opportunities, and I take those opportunities when I see James Bass or Chairman Bug or any of the folks there at TxDOT, you know, I'm always talking to them about the importance of this Grand Parkway and what it means to our region and what it means to our area. So I think more than anything, I think it's a matter of, you know, I use the squeaky wheel kind of analogy, but I think it's good that we talk about it, and then we talk about it in a way that we want to emphasize the importance of it and not let that be lost on anyone there at TxDOT. Now, I don't think it is, but there's so many demands on TxDOT for everything, and I think we have to just keep pushing and pushing for this, because I watched this reentry of the capsule this weekend, and there's a great example of where the public-private partnership did something that no one ever thought the public-private partnership would do. I mean, who would have ever thought that a commercial person would eventually be the one that would put 2 astronauts into space? I mean, I remember when Apollo and all those things were Mercury, and when all that was going on, and how the government basically. So I think maybe there needs to be somewhat of a mind shift, if you will, that that there does need to be more public-private type discussion about these transportation things as we go forward. So I think it's important we just continue to talk to them, we continue to visit with them about it, we continue to put it out there as the important project in our region.
Theresa, I might add that from Representative Thompson, there is a market valuation waiver agreement that was put in place in 2009. And we brought that up when State Representative Thompson was leading the charge to Austin, just to remind the Transportation Commission that all the revenue that comes in off the Grand Parkway can only be used for the Grand Parkway. So you couple that along with this new traffic and revenue updates, so we see those revenue streams, and that's certainly a big support. So we're definitely advocates of continuing to make sure that market waiver evaluation agreement moves forward and stays in place. The other thing is that there's the primacy issue. Both Galveston County and Brazoria County have primacy. They have the rights to that. Both counties, in their open discussions with TxDOT officials, are willing to work through that. TxDOT is open to that, so that TxDOT can go ahead and move the project forward. So we're waiting on that information, as John said. Let's be advocates, as Representative Thompson said. Let's be that squeaky wheel and move those things forward. But I think all the tools are in place for us as we stay together as a region.
Yeah. And I think one more thing, and I know we've said it or it's been talked about, is as a region, we need to be steadfast what our priorities are and make sure that, there are lots of important projects in the Houston region and across the state, and just make sure that the Grand Parkway, the southern segment of it, stays high on that list of important projects, or it'll get lost in the shuffle of everything else. And I think, as Larry said, funding should already be in place, and it's not competing with tax dollars. It's competing with just the projects within the Grand Parkway system.
So let me add something. We're kind of talking about B and C, but one of the segments, which is A, which links over to 146, and BayTran is trying to get people to realize that it doesn't do a lot of good if we got B and C and we've left out A. Both those are in the 10-year plan, but not funded, but A's not even in that plan. And we're already going through growth issues in Kemah now with the 146 expansion, which is the east part of the Grand Parkway. And it's going to be a shame when it finishes in, let's say, 7 years and it stops because it can't connect to A and keep on going. So we really need B, C, and A to go at the same time. It's going to be years down the road, but even if it's a tollway, I, for one, would be glad to pay. Some people want to call that a tax. Well, if you don't want to pay the tax, don't get on the tollway, but I'd love to get on that while I'm still on Earth and buzz all the way to the west side of Houston within minutes instead of stop and go the whole way. So we're going to be taking the lead to be pushing the whole segment so that in 7 to 10 years, when 146 gets to that point, that it doesn't have to wait another 10 years to connect.
And Theresa, I might add to that, that in our last WebEx call with TxDOT, Fort Bend County and Sugar Land were on that call, very appropriately so. And we have our kids now living in Katy. So we've been utilizing that Grand Parkway segment from I-10 down through into Fort Bend County. So it is a joy to be able to come down that road. And I agree with Carl. Let's just take this whole thing, get the one that's ready closest, but keep pushing the entire Grand Parkway.
Well, the other thing, you know, the I-69 bypass plans to come around the east side. Well, I-69 first started being talked about, 20 years or so ago? And so do we want another 20 years before we can say that we've got that bypass finished? So we all just need to work together. And that's what BayTran's all about, is getting all of us to be communicating, because what we're doing here is going to be good for our entire region.
Well, our time is just about up, and you know, you do have a point of that. You know, the Grand Parkway doesn't work for us unless it's fully connected, and so all of the remaining segments are critical to making that happen. And we thank you for your role in pushing it as hard as you can. We know you guys have been up to Austin fighting for it, and we will continue to fight for it until it's built, and we'll continue to talk about the Grand Parkway until it's built. And so thank you all. Thank you, Larry. Thank you, John. Thank you, Representative Thompson. And thank you, Carl. Do you have any closing remarks?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I see that at one point we had over 50 members on participating in this webinar, and I believe that's probably the largest ever. And so Representative Thompson, at least 10 of your family got on. I guess they had trouble getting on too. But anyway, really, I do appreciate this, because I mean, look at the area we're kind of covering today in this webinar, and we're all working for one common goal, which I hope we can all see that one day. So it's been good listening to what you guys have to say, and I really appreciate your taking time to be with us today and tell us about your area specifically.
All right, and with that, we will see you back next week. We'll be sending an announcement later this week to let you know who we're hosting, and we hope you'll keep coming back week after week. If you have any suggestions or anyone you want to see, please email me at president@baytran.org. Anything your cities need, any initiatives that you're following that you think BayTran should be getting engaged in, please feel free to reach out to us at any point. Thank you all again. Thank you everybody who joined on the participants, and we will see you back next week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Don't forget
Thank you.
segment A. Segment A, okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.